Welcome back, dear friends. I've got the new one of these cut out. I've moved it all around, taken off the no chime thing or whatever it is, no alarm. I'm really pleased with that. That gives that more space, it's more spread out. I'm very pleased, very pleased. Just gluing on the two lenses because I need to glue this on. I was thinking, how can I get that, which is the opaque white screen behind the minute dial, glued into the centre of that accurately? And I vaguely remembered gluing these two lenses in place, butting that up straight in the middle. So that's in the process of being done. I've also just built this little illumination thing. When I first designed the chronological engine, I could not figure out how to illuminate the dial. I tried all sorts of things, from acrylic light guides to hidden LEDs to all sorts. In the end, I found the best way to do it was to unsolder some warm white LEDs from one of those flexible strips. Well, you can buy them separately, but I know these work, so I just carry on doing that. And then solder them into the little slots that I've cut in this piece of acrylic, and it works really nicely. The reason for the way they're wired up is because of the nature of LEDs. It's a good idea to give each one its own resistor. I've got to glue this onto two spacers so it sandwiches wherever it needs to sandwich. And this time, I remember last time I made one, I couldn't work this out, and I was standing on a chair, peering into the side of the one in the kitchen, trying to figure it out. So finally, I've got around to sorting it, and I have done measurements. And now I'm going to make me a jig. Lots of lovely sparklies. The other really exciting and daunting thing that happened this morning was I was interviewed about Steampunk in a Zoom call. So then the TARDIS console base, which is awaiting some more crowdfunding, now supports the Epizoescope. I haven't seen the Epizoescope and the Is It Time for Tea Machine for 2 years, I think it is, since since the pandemic hit and we couldn't go to any more Steampunk events. But the story is, very briefly, I bought a digital photo frame so I could display videos of bits and pieces on it. And as always, thought this is really boring, a really simple plastic white tedium. So I spent 2 weeks, I couldn't stop myself. I started off with this front panel. There's the Luminescent Epizoescope, I don't even know what it's called anymore, and some nice buttons at the bottom and a gauge and bits and pieces. I thought, hang on a minute, any self-respecting Victorian steampunk machine with optics must have some bellows. The top tip is you use hockey stick tape, which is black fabric sticky tape, to stick it together. Anyway, that was that, and then it needed a back, and then I thought, hang on a minute, also has to have movement on. So got completely carried away. At the side you can see limelight. If it was Victorian it would have used limelight, so there's the oxyhydrogen mix and some valves and a lovely little thing. I'm really pleased with that. It mimics, or hopefully looks like a little piece of the quicklime that's sitting in the jets, hydrogen jet and things. In fact, show you the secret back. There's two little LEDs that flicker on and off through a sort of printed mask thing, and it does look lovely. Anyway, and look at this candle. This is one of my favourite things. It looks so realistic, absolutely amazing. And it's a little LED that shines up onto a piece of plastic that's being wobbled around underneath. If you look down on it, you can see there's a little pin that supports it. It looks so incredibly realistic. So the sort of theory is, there's the heat source, here's the lovely rotating boiler, rotating for some unknown reason, that produces the steam. The steam then goes up this pipe, past a valve. Always need a valve, a regulating valve this is, and then along down to sort of a motor type pump piston thing. And then you've got all these gears. But again, because it's optical, I wanted to include a nip cow disc I looked it up recently, like sort of John Logie Baird used in his mechanical television system all those years ago. You can see it sort of scanning down. It should normally have lenses in, but never mind. And some other bits and pieces, and then, and of course you've got to have a governor. I was building this, and I thought, yeah, you've got to have a governor. So there's a governor that's turned through all that. Look at this lovely ball chain. It's such an amazing thing, ball chain. The fact you can change direction in different axes. And that turns that, and then that actually does work. If these swing outwards, it doesn't go fast enough, but that then works through linkages to, as you can see, oh look, there we are, through linkages to control the steam pressure. I thank you. Really pleased with that, and it is a joy to see it working, and you know, see all the lovely, it's so much fun building one-off things like this. No plans, you just start with something and then you just carry on. Inside it's actually pretty hollow. You can see nice things, you can see nice bearings. Then of course there's Florence. And I'd forgotten how much I love Florence. The Is It Time for Tea machine. This is one of the reasons, actually this is the main reason I bought a 3D printer, because I wanted to make an automaton head, a speaking one. And the only way I could think of doing it was with 3D printing, sure enough. So let's see what Florence says regarding whether it is time for tea. Raise the handle, and then, and that was another really enjoyable thing to build. Her sort of mechanism that works her down below. As you can see, there's an awful lot to it.
Thank you for your inquiry. Please wait while I consult my gauges.
And then she turns around, and you can see her body turning around as well, with lots more interesting mechanisms, and she reads the pressure and the humidity.
Humidity is 52%. The barometric pressure is currently 1,019 hectopascals and is rising. This suggests the weather will become fair.
And then she turns round and she reads the time and the temperature. All important things for deciding whether it is or is not actually time for tea. There's another side to the mechanisms. And even when she speaks, I went to the trouble of creating a sort of mock wax disc. As she speaks...
The temperature is 78 Fahrenheit. The time is now 9:45 anti-meridian. My conclusion is that this is the correct juncture for you to partake in a cup of tea. I sincerely hope you gain immense pleasure from your brew. Thank you for your inquiry.
And then she goes to sleep until someone else asks her. And the little footlights fade down, and then her machinery fades down. And then finally, for no good reason at all, that drops down. It's so lovely having silly ideas and just thinking, how ridiculous, I want a latching device. You can't just lift it and whatever. I'm so pleased, and it has been a joy to see her again before I put her back in the box. Just cleaning up these support things that support the clock, and obviously a laser cutter can cut in 2 dimensions but not 3, so I have to machine these out, drill a hole to countersink them as well. And this lovely jig, I mean it's a horrible, hideous bench vise, but as I've said before, but this little one bit of wood with some pins stuck in it, 2 of which stop it from wobbling from side to side, and some other ones along it for a different job, is perfect for this. Once you've set it up to the centre of the hole where you want, you just clamp the machine vise down, and then you can drop each one in turn, lined up, touching the pin, and Bob is your proverbial auntie. It is brilliant, I'm so pleased, and now all 3 are going to be absolutely identical. Isn't this a delight? This is going to hold that, one of the spirit levels. Not because it's absolutely necessary, but lots of machines need to be level, so that's nice. But also because of the red, it balances with the valve and some other bits and pieces. So look, I've cut out from 10mm thick acrylic little horseshoe shapes and end caps, really carefully the hole, and they just push in. I haven't glued them in yet. I'm going to drip some glue in from the back, which is what I always do. So much better than trying to glue it in and then push it together, or drip it in from the front or whatever. Dripping it from the back is superb if in the system myself. And look at that. That even pops in as well. And then once that's sprayed up a brass, it will look absolutely blinding. Right, get this glued together. Got them done. It's almost time to start painting stuff. There's the lovely parts for the PIR sensor that sits in there. That sits on the front of that, which looks nice. And there's some other little bits and pieces on that control arm. This is all set now, glued perfectly, if you don't mind me saying so. And there it is. It looks really nice there. I'm very pleased, and it sticks up just the same amount as these two large lenses, so I know there's room for it. And on this, I'm just getting these together because I haven't got any notes. I'm figuring it out as I go along, and then writing notes and changing the design if I need to. And you can see with these two, here are the pushers, the stepper motors, and I've fixed a lever onto that one that's going to do that. That's on the hour hand, so I'll set at the pointer, which is brilliant, that I can set the pointer with a screw from the front when everything's together, so that the code basically says, okay, move so many steps for each of the numbers. When you want to go to 12, then keep going till you click the switch, and I'll set that to happen there, and then go minus number of degrees to get back to 1 or 0, whatever it is. So that's that. And then in this one, the minute one, there is, and I really hope I've got these the right way around, there's a little magnet that I've stuck in, and there's the read switch. So as this one turns, obviously this one needs to go all the way around. So this one turns, say I'll make that sort of 60, so right at the top, for example. Again, the hand screws on, which is fantastic. Really so much simpler to set it up and be able to adjust it like that. I thought I'd just check the read relay because I couldn't hear it clicking. So I've got the multimeter connected to it. So as you turn it, you can see how close the magnet has to be to it. Not quite a long way, but if this is rotating clockwise, it is worth fiddling and fighting about, because now I've got this, you can see what I'm talking about. These bits just fit beautifully into the cutouts. A little bit tight there, but never mind. But it means I can now scribe or punch through the centre of these wherever the screws go. I'm also going to make some way of marking on the horizontal hole for the pipe and the vertical hole for the pipe, and then I can make notes on here about how far this is from the corner of the wood. It just really helps to speed it up. That bit, by the way, is for the PIR sensor support screw. I'll get on with it. Sheet steel, thin sheet steel such as this, does not like being drilled with a twist drill, or whatever they're called. The name escapes me. I've drilled the first hole there because this is where the pipes are going to go in, and I need to keep double checking that I don't drill the wrong ones. Nice little jig, lovely little jig. Lots of support underneath, just like when I drilled the plastic bits for the shades for the scribulator. Support is everything. I've centre punched them as well. What's great is it sprays lots of really hot little bits of metal all over you, but it does give you a perfect hole, which I'm going to use my lovely, in fact I'm going to use it now, my lovely deburrer tool. Look at that. What a joy, an absolute joy. Life and soul of the party, it really is. Isn't that fun? You know, in the past I would have, I know I've gone on and on about this in the past, but in the past I would have had to have got a file, and well, I used to get files or wet and dry or something and try and file it smooth. But that's it. Look, no cut, no leaking of blood. Lovely. Right, I'll get the other holes drilled. The next thing I've got to do is to tap the holes in these lozenge shaped bits are going to fit on, that are going to hold the pipe fittings onto the outside of the clock body. Hadn't got any notes on it, I've struggled before and vaguely remembered using the lathe, because you can spin this by hand, the tap, and the chuck will hold it absolutely vertically, but it doesn't seem to, and also it's really difficult to stop it twisting. Time for another jig. It's just so much easier with a nice jig. Look at that, I don't even have to support it. And then to get this to fit against the side of the clock, I built this thing. It's nice and dangerous, and also this thing. So you switch it on, and then you slowly ease this onto it. I've slowed down the pillar drill a bit. This is spinning now, so I need to tighten things up. But you get the idea. And then that sounds the angle on. And this is why I had to buy up the remaining stock of this, because it took so long to work out all the different bits. Of course, dear friends, I could actually 3D print these bits with the thread and the angles and everything else. Now there's a thought. And it could print it in brass or copper. The thing is, doing it with a 3D printer would take all the fun out of it. There we are. So that sits on there and you can see it lines up perfectly. It is so exciting painting something like this. Right back, remember we learnt how to do it at college studying industrial design and engineering, or product design it is now. You make things out of all sorts of different bits of wood and plastic and metal and all sorts. Absolutely spot on scale model of a product that you designed. All different colours, everything else. And then you'd get it primed by the man who worked in the spray booth, and it would come back and suddenly, and it's just like this, look, it's just gorgeous. Look at the shine. It's an absolute joy. Suddenly it's all the same colour, and it really does start looking like some beautiful piece of equipment from the Victorian era. Oh, how lovely. Time to take the dog for a walk. I was happy with the finish on the clock's base, but then I checked it close up and found there's some scratches on it, so I just couldn't let it lie, so I've sanded it off. Then I remember, well, I've marked everything else out with this lovely jig, tons of notes, really handy, and I need now to cut a hole out of the back so that I can get to all the works on the back of the clock, because otherwise, once this is screwed down and the clock's inside, it is so frustrating because you can't get to any of the circuit. So for example, you can't plug in the USB, you can't reprogram it or change anything because you haven't got access to this. And also soldering on and connecting the wires from the PIR sensor and the encoder and things like that is impossible, really fiddly. I know, because I've tried it and decided never again. So I'm going to cut a hole in the back so I can get to all that. It's a little thing, but when you've struggled a few times not doing that, you really do appreciate it. And I'm going to cut the hole with the jig that I made for the TARDIS. It really is a joy. Whiz round, cuts out perfect hole, and I used the depth stop on the router so it wouldn't go straight through this into my lovely table, which it hasn't, no, I'm pleased to say. Ooh, I've been having terrible troubles with this. Everything works perfectly, except whenever you unplug it and plug it back in, it goes back to some strange time, day and date or whatever. And I really couldn't figure it out. It's got a battery backup real-time clock in it, so when you unplug it, theoretically it should remember the day, date and month and everything else. And it works if you leave it switched on, but I have just discovered what caused it, having sat and fiddled around with the code, trying different things, serial printing the date and time before I set it, as I set it with this, and didn't make any sense. Then, dear friends, I thought I'd share this with you. When you have a real-time clock, you can include this line of code here, and it will set the date and time of the real-time clock to the time and the date when the script or the sketch was compiled and uploaded. And that's great, really helpful, but don't leave this in play. Once you've uploaded the sketch and it's set the time with this, comment it out and then upload it again. The real-time clock will still remember the time. But I've just realised that every time this runs after it's been switched off and on again, it is going to try and read it from the PC or computer and can't, and that's what's been causing all the problem. As simple as that. So with the aid of two, whatever it is, slashes, it's gone. Oh, I'm so pleased. It's taken me ages to work that out, so well worth sharing, and I'm sure it's absolutely bleeding obvious to everyone else, but not me. And I've realised, coincidentally, it's why the Is It Time for Tea also never remembers the time when it's switched off. Nothing to do with electronics or this or that. It's I've left that wretched line of code in. Ridiculous.